Hey, everyone, it's Isaiah. Welcome. Oh, I forgot to put the little thing that says, what is this? So this is an episode of my podcast called Isaiah's Inspiring Evenings. And it is a special series that I've been having so much fun recording over the last year and a half. That is called Things Women Don't Talk About. So this series is about things women don't talk about. And it's made of conversations with a woman guest around topics that are seldom discussed, whether they are too difficult, too, let's say that, sacred or taboo, too dark, or not serious enough, like too mundane, too fun. And my idea when I opened this series was to basically open up for no topic is off the table. And I discuss with my guests beforehand and on what they want to talk about. So we've talked about death, we've talked about bathrooms, we've talked about pretty much anything under the sun. And tonight we are talking about happiness. This is for me a huge topic. I was so happy when my guest, the amazing Leslie Ellis, offered to talk about happiness, not only for this episode, but for a series of 3 episodes that are going to be recorded and uploaded in the next 3 months. So this is June 2024, if you're listening to that in the future. So if you're in the future, you already have the 3 episodes. I don't, and I can't wait. So before we go any further, let me present and introduce Leslie. So Leslie is the creator of the HeartSong Yoga and coaching. She is a soul embodiment coach. She's the founder, as I was saying, of the HeartSong Yoga Sanctuary. She has been teaching yoga, meditation, and personal development for over 25 years. Leslie's deepest desire for all of us is that we connect fully to the heart of who we are and the beautiful gift that is to the world. She helps you and me to deeply embody your authentic self through movement, meditation, and sacred self-care practices. She is also a certified soul-based coach and can guide you to your wisdom for support with any questions or challenges you have and to clear blocks to living the life you want. You will find more information around where you can get in touch with Leslie above or below the audio, depending on where you're watching or listening to this. But let's get into the topic of happiness. So Reflections on Happiness was the title that you chose, and I love it because it's like we need to reflect on that. Let's think about happiness, which means basically that we're not thinking about it enough, which I love. So the first thing that when you mentioned happiness, what came to me, is it really a topic that we don't talk about? And why? So that would be my first question. Because there are so many movies, with the happy ends and everything. So
yeah. I remember when I first said, Isaiah, I want to talk about happiness. And I think we were on a Zoom call. So there was a little facial expression of like, And I get that question. I understand that question. Is it something that we don't talk about? Because perhaps actually there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about happiness. There's a lot of talk about happiness, but there isn't necessarily a felt sense that I have in the world that happiness is something that is deeply experienced on an ongoing basis by a lot of people. Because we know too that there's a lot of suffering in the world. There's a lot of challenges in the world. We're inundated with bad news that you can't feel happy about, right? that is distressing, disheartening, upsetting, all of that. Yeah. So do we talk about happiness enough? Maybe we talk about it enough, but do we reflect on it, and do we really understand it deeply within ourselves? That might be more my question, and why I think that it's something that's important for us to talk about. I don't think we talk about it in that way.
Yeah, I agree. we seem to be talking a lot about desiring happiness, about yearning, about, reaching out for, or being incapable of, but we don't talk about the thing in and of itself. So, of course, I'm going to go with, what is happiness?
Yeah, what is happiness? What is happiness? I think that we have this idea maybe that happiness is like, oh, everything's fine. It's like, woohoo, and I'm happy. Watch Pharrell Williams and sing that beat, and because I'm happy. And that's a part of it, right? That is a part of it. There is a state that we can have that is like happy, outwardly expressed in that way. I also feel like happiness, for me, it's a deep and abiding sense of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't go away. It's always there. Even when things aren't happening in the world in the way that we want to, whether it's my own personal world or the bigger outer world, that inside there's a place that I can tap into. And it's a sense of deep well-being that includes a smile, a little light in my eyes. And it's just natural and organic. It's present regardless of what is happening around.
Yeah, so we're talking about a feeling or a state that is not circumstantial. It's not because I just ate a gorgeous meal, or I had a wonderful conversation with someone, or somebody loves me, or the sun is shining per se, or I'm not per se. And that changes completely, obviously, the desire for it, because it's like we then don't have to try and get it, like, buy off a shelf, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or fake it till you make it, or like pretend happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The kind of happiness that's like, the social media happiness. Life is all good and everything's great. And the way that it gets expressed, that then we end up comparing ourselves and thinking maybe we don't have something that other person has, but we do.
Yeah.
We do. And what it takes is presence and the willingness to drop in and be present.
Mm-hmm.
I just really feel that that's true. And that is a challenge, because when there are things happening that we don't like,
Mm-hmm.
that don't make us happy, right? We don't want to be present with those things. But when we're not present with those things, we also don't have so much capacity to really experience what's underneath them and present all the time, which is our eternal well-being.
So we're talking about the one way to happiness is never pushing anything under the rug, right? It's not about pretending that everything is happy all the time, and whatever is unhappy or seems to be bringing feelings of unhappiness, I hide, or because then I end up hiding it even from myself. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of hidden in there, and it's like, the image that came to me was something that is getting rotten on the inside, and then there's no way to be happy.
Yeah.
Because we keep it instead of we keep the reason for unhappiness instead of putting it out there. We kind of swallow it.
Yeah, there can be that, like that sweeping it under the rug, swallowing it, denying it, also pushing it away. And it's like, okay, I don't want that. What I want is to feel happy. And so I'm going to like do the thing that seems like happiness as I'm pushing that away. And the thing is that we'll keep pushing in and in and in. If I can welcome it, even be happy with it, my experience of life changes. There's less struggle. There's less suffering. I mean, this is like an ancient teaching, right? An age-old teaching that we create our own suffering by trying to push that suffering away, not accepting it, not sort of being present with it, and letting it shift and change the way that it does. All of our feelings are always shifting and changing, including happiness, right? Including excitement, enthusiasm, motivation. All of those things are also going to shift and change. But when we're like, but I want more of that and I don't want that, then we get in this struggle where things just kind of dull out, actually. That we could start to feel a little numb to the possibilities, the potential that we have for just feeling okay.
Yeah, so basically it's about being here for what is and what isn't at the same time, and just being okay with that. Am I summing this up in a way that makes sense for you?
Yeah, I think that's largely it. It's like being present with what is and being okay with that, like accepting that is what is. And even more than that, it is let me see how the words that come for this. It's like dropping into something that is beyond the fluctuations and changes and things that are happening in the moment. That there is something underneath that, a part of our being that is what I'm going to call happy. Which I think sometimes, and this is another reason why I thought like this isn't something that we talk about, because the word happy itself, I think, feels a little trivial for a lot of people. That
There is this idea, at least in French, but I think it's true in English as well, that there is this a little stupid, happy-go-lucky or happy, ha ha ha. It's like it's opposite too clever or too, or deep.
Yeah.
You can't be happy and deep. If you're happy, you're kind of shallow, kind of.
Right. You want to
How can
talk
you be
about
happy?
yeah, you want to talk about happiness, that it could seem like it's a little shallow. To me, it's very deep. I mean, it's a
I
very
agree.
deep topic. And the way that we trivialize it also takes us away from that. Gosh, the words just keep coming to like that deep, abiding sense of being okay. To me, if we characterize happiness like that, instead of it needing to be something that's jovial or excited or like kind of
But
outwardly
I think there is fusion. We have the emotion of joy, which is an emotion. So as all emotions, they, swift and they change and they come and then they leave. And then, shit happens and you're not joyful. But joyful and happy are completely different things, right? Happy is something deep, as you were saying, whereas joyful can be a passing emotion that is maybe more circumstantial. So it's a vocabulary question. We have to kind of reconsider what we call joyful and what we call happy.
Yeah, I think that, we can kind of get down to the language and what's the word we want to use. Because I can imagine some people might disagree with you and say like, no, joy is also something that there's an abundance of and that we can draw on. So maybe it ultimately comes down to not so much even having to choose a word to describe it, but the word, the way we describe it, whether it's happiness or joy or whatever, is a starting point. Is a starting point for us to then have a conversation with the self of like, okay, what is it that is here for me that helps me to like move through my life, that like is really a foundational element that helps me to move through my life in a way that feels good to me. Even when there's grief, even when there's anger, even when there's sadness, when there's joy, when there's whatever emotion or feeling there is, that I have the sense of being that isn't shattered changed even or shifted because of those feelings that come through and the experiences that I have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. That, that it's finding this place of, I don't know, stillness, I'm guessing.
There can be stillness to it. Yeah. Yeah.
That is not, like, I'm not anymore this boat on a shaky ocean. Let's put it this way. I've just had a boat ship experience, so I'm all about sea. But yeah, there's something about being okay with not being okay, and still that's happiness. Is that
I mean, I can go ahead.
Well, I was going to go for take my as an example. We never talk as well. The easiest way is to talk about things that I know about, so my life. So I have recently been diagnosed with cancer. Thank the goddess, it's a treatable and reasonable one. Actually, the day I was diagnosed, I did not have time. The doctor was very late, and so when I finally got into his office and he announced me the news, which was kind of life-changing, shattering, sad, big things, I did not have time to actually drive home after that in time for my appointment with somebody who wanted to be a guest in this podcast. So I had to take the call and do the Zoom call from my car, just outside of the doctor's office. And so I just had 10 minutes to kind of prep and go into that call. And those 10 minutes were spent in my head going, am I going to talk about this? Or am I not? Am I just going to go through this kind of interview process with this person without mentioning that? And I had no answer to that question. I was kind of, a little shaky. And so we come live. We talk about her podcast episode, what she wants, blah, blah, blah. And in the middle of it, because she kind of asked me a question, I blanked out. And I said, I'm not really my cheerful self right now, because this and that. And at the end of the conversation, she told me that she was very impressed with my ability to actually process that that fast and to be okay with it. And it made me think that 10 years ago, I would never have been in that position. And that indeed there was a level of, it's like a deep layer of happiness that could not be even touched by cancer. It was like, yeah, sure, we'll do your podcast episode, and it was like, and yeah, well, I'll deal with the thing and we'll see what happens, etc., etc. But on the whole, I was not shattered. I was not destroyed by this thing. And I'm not saying that just, to parade my, I'm so good at this, because I will be shattered someday and again and again. But I'm just sharing that because I think it's like we build up this layer of happiness, and the more we work on it and we spend time cultivating it like a garden or like a plant, the more we are basking in it when nothing sad or terrific happens. Then when something happens, it's like easier to be there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does make sense. I mean, I think part of what you're talking about, I often, as a yoga teacher and yoga therapist, embodied movement is a big part of what I do. And I don't teach yoga in a way that is super fitness oriented, but it is a physical fitness and mental fitness and emotional fitness activity. So I think about what you're talking about, spending time basking in that when nothing bad is happening. That it's kind of like building a muscle, right? You build the muscle of happiness.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then because you have that strength and sense of happiness, you can tap into it when you need
Yeah.
it.
Mm.
And it's not the kind of tapping in. So I have um, a little pet peeve, and that is the use of affirmations. Not that I think affirmations are bad. I think affirmations can be really helpful, but sometimes people use them as as a way to kind of bypass what it is that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I'm having this negative thought. Well, if I just have a positive thought, then I'll feel better,
Mm.
right? And that works kind of like a band-aid. It's not the healing
Mm-hmm.
of the wound. It's just covering up and maybe protecting the wound, which there are times that we all need to do. But it's the healing of the wounds that help us to like drop in and really be ourselves
Mm.
completely. And it is when we are being ourselves completely, when we feel comfortable in our own skin and like being here where we are, again, regardless of what else is going on, that we know that happiness.
Mm.
And so I know that your work in the world, and I think any of us who have connected to the goddess and really brought her energy in, have a lot of support for that. There are many other avenues into it
Yeah, of
as well.
course.
But just trying to change the mind without changing the energy of who we are is only so effective. Like it will
Yeah.
only take us so far. So
Yeah, I
yes to
agree.
affirmations in a way, but
Mm-hmm.
not to just trying to think differently, be different than you
Well,
are
the
in
thing
order to
is,
have something.
I think you're going to agree with me that we cannot just suppress emotions and just pretend that they're not there. If I'm sad, if I'm angry, if I'm, anxious, it's there. I can't just pretend it's not there. And the huge amount of affirmations that I can write on my mirror and repeat to myself or sing to myself will not make the sadness, the anxiety, the anger disappear. I have to first look at it, kind of see that it's there for it to move. And
Yeah.
yeah, if we just cover the wounds, we don't heal them.
Right.
Absolutely. But I think it's about, for me, that the in that car that day, the main feeling on top of the kind of shock because I wasn't prepared, the surprise, which and the kind of anger, like, oh no, I don't want that for me, was
Yeah.
gratitude, and
Mhm.
and weirdly enough, because I knew instantly that I was also lucky to have that particular cancer that was not going to kill me, hopefully. um,
Yeah.
that I could get the help and the medical help and the spiritual help that it was available, that I was not alone in this, that etc. etc. So, but all this is the kind of muscle building over the years that helped
Mhm.
me to be able to see um, what was available to me as resources, etc., etc. So I believe that it's really about muscle building more than about affirming, now I'm different.
Right. 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 And part of what I was coming to me, like in what you're describing, is you're also in that moment describing being present with the transience of our feelings. Like we can have shock and anger and disbelief and all of that, and certainly the news that you got in that moment, those are all completely valid, right? They're all completely valid. But even those kinds of feelings in a validated kind of situation are transient, and they shift and they change
Yeah.
and they move, and other feelings are available as well. So it's almost like instead of trying to get a new thought, we could open ourselves up to another feeling,
Yeah.
another sense of what's happening. There's some great research by, I think her name is Jill Bolt Taylor. Do you know her?
No, I
She's
don't.
she's a neurologist who had a stroke, actually, and observed herself through the process of this stroke, and then in recovery and everything has done some other research. But one of the things that she says in some of her writing is that a feeling only lasts 90 seconds. Like physiologically, that's the lifespan of a feeling. That's all it can last.
Wow.
That's all. That is what it is. The reason we feel like feelings last longer than that is because we reignite them with our thoughts. We re-stimulate through what we're thinking about, what we're reflecting on, what we are worried about, what we're projecting. But then we re-engage these feelings over and over again, and we can get ourselves into a loop that can go on for minutes, hours, months, years, right? And it's like that, and we can keep doing it. So what I hear you describing is that instead of getting into that loop, you're able to let these other feelings come through too. Not that the shock, the disgust, the anger,
it was there.
Yeah, it's all going to be part of it. But instead of getting kind of mired into fear or into the anger or whatever, you let that be there. And what happens is these feelings are kind of all moving as currents on the surface. And what I think about happiness is it's the depths.
Mm-hmm.
It's the depths. There's the currents on the surface, and there are the depths. And we can at any time, at any moment, dive into the depths.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that where most of us are going to live all the time? Probably not. We're going to swim in the currents.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this possibility, this potential that we have to remember, like to take a deep dive and a deep breath and drop in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the currents actually become kind of more fun to swim in.
Yeah. There's a part of me that it was really interesting, because there was a part of me that could be almost observing the other part. So I was, and I've not felt that very often. I consider that I've many things in my life, many times I've been engulfed in the emotions in the moment, because I kind of pretend that, I want to be present and everything, but sometimes I just, get drowned by the present. This time it was interesting to see that I could kind of almost get out of myself, have an out of body experience, and kind of hug this anxious, fearful self and say, it's going to be all right, just breathe. we're doing this, we're swimming there, and that I think was for me so it was both being in the moment and being present, absolutely, but not as my fearful, over emotional self. Both those selves were there, present, and they could support each other, which was cool.
Yeah. I love that sense of like kind of coming together with the self. And there is a mutual support that can happen in that.
Well, I think it's another way of saying what you were saying about diving deep. It's finding this part of me that was not in disbelief, that was not, that was, and said, we'll do this. Okay. And not all of me was like that. I'm not Buddha, because I read your post where you mentioned Buddha and the smile and everything. And I was like, yeah, not me. But there is a part of me that is. And when I can connect to that part that is in the depths, that is, and that is not moving, that is not shattered by any movements, that these two parts of me are better off, basically.
Yeah.
No, because the other thing is there is a lot around the interwebs around are we going to call it positivity? You need to be positive about everything, every time, etc. And again, I'm very scared, I think, of repressed emotions. So I would like that both of us, we insist to our listeners, no, you don't need to repress any of those emotions. You're allowed to have all of them. There's just maybe another part of you that can help you navigate those, and that is the happy part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Positivity. I love that. There's a term, toxic positivity, right? Where we actually use, but positivity can be a medicine also. But again, it's not that positivity that is put on, and it's instead of then addressing the negative. Like we can look at what's real within ourselves, what's painful, what is shattered, what's wounded. We can look at that with a positive attitude, with a positive, accepting and openness, right? And that is part of the healing process for that. So it's not like, oh, I don't have that, I'm all good. Not that kind of positivity, but the positivity that is welcoming. You said there was that part of you that could embrace and give a hug to the part that was feeling shattered. Like that's a very positive approach, right? That is positivity in action, right? To embrace and hug what is wounded or what is suffering. And so we can do that for ourselves too.
Yeah. And also, the invitation there is no should for happiness, right? It's not like you should feel happy all the time, because this is then so heavy, for everyone, because it would, for me, it always brings me back to, if we're looking at happiness just like we're looking at perfection, so as a non-changing state, like I want to be happy all the time, like, a flat line of happiness up there. It reminds me of the one thing that I know for sure, that everything in life changes all the time. Everything that is alive is moving and changing perpetually. Even the atoms in the table that, or in your body, that everything is changing, right? The only things that don't change are the dead things. So even a complete happiness with no movement is impossible unless we're dead, and we don't want to be right now. At least I don't.
Yeah. It's really, again, like we're talking about happiness. There's a way that we can perceive what happiness is. And if we perceive happiness as a state that's dependent on something else, then we might say like, oh, the outer experience, the outer happenings in my life have to match because I want to stay at this level of happiness, right? But if we think, I just think of it like more deep, like happiness can be an unchanging thing, but it's not our moment to moment experience of how we feel about life and how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about the people that we're around. That isn't the unchanging state. There might be feelings of happiness that come in relationship to those things, but there's also this underlying.
Yeah, the thing is, it makes me think of there's a mythological story, Greek mythology. Of course, being Greek, I would always bring back the Greek mythology. But there's this story that there was one of the philosophers had a barrel, and it had no bottom. So basically, he was constantly trying to fill it up with things, but everything would come out of the bottom. It feels to me like happiness can be like that. If we don't have the depth, the deep layer of constant happiness, let's put it this way, then all the joy or the happy moments that I can pour into my barrel, they're never going to stick, because it's never going to be enough. And then we we might go into addiction, for instance, more and more, because we want more joyful moments, more happy moments, more and more.
Right.
And that is because there is no bottom to our barrel of life. So,
And maybe
if we have a deep,
maybe happiness itself is the bottom of the barrel.
yeah,
Happiness itself is there, and then all the stuff that happens is just kind of layered on top of that. And just like fine wine in an oak barrel, right, takes on the oak, then everything else that's in the
yeah,
barrel takes on the essence of that, of the barrel itself, the
Okay,
happiness
so we
itself.
have to, I love this conversation, but we also have to go to a place where it might be a little more painful, which is the state of the world is no reason to be happy, and, it's like,
Right.
what the, you ladies are talking about being happy, but have you seen racism? Have you seen misery, poverty, blah, blah, blah. And yes, we have, because we're not blind. We're not talking about turning a blind eye. We're talking about the happiness that is not circumstantial. And if the happiness is not circumstantial, neither is the unhappiness. So there's a layer of me that is unhappy all the time because of the freaking state of the world. It's like always there. There is of me that would love even for me to be able to clap my fingers and have racism eradicated from the surface of the planet, or misogyny, or excision, or war. And this part is also part of of the bottom of my barrel. I just don't let it drown me.
Yeah. I might characterize it just a little bit differently than unhappiness, or even being the bottom of the barrel. It's compassion, right? And compassion, like we have that bottom of the barrel. If we use that analogy, I like it. That bottom of the barrel happiness. Encompassed within that is also our hearts and the compassionate hearts that we have. And that heart, that is going to feel, deeply. And I think personally, the more I drop into that, like abiding happiness, the more I also can hold the hardships and the sufferings in the world and not turn a blind eye. Because if I'm always striving to feel happy, I'm not going to be able to look at all that atrocity in the world.
Let alone do anything about it.
Yeah.
Let alone do anything about it. Because for me, that's the crucial part, that it's good and fine to be happy, but what are we doing? How are we of service to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, to the world? And I don't think that being unhappy is helping. I think that actually we need to be kind of at least happy enough to be able to be of service, to be actually able to hold and the compassion for and to be of any help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The more I can allow myself, you can allow yourself. Anyone listening here, the more you can allow yourself to drop in and really feel okay with yourself, even, satisfied, happy, confident, clear about what it is that's important to you, that is going to support you to be able, again, like you were just saying, Isaiah, not just to look at what's happening, but to take action. And that action may be a big outward action that actually has an impact in a place where they're suffering somewhere out in the world. It also could be the smallest step that you take within your own community or within your own life that creates, what I always think of, that, that ripple then
Yeah, no, if we're talking about energy, of course, we as an individual, just taking care of myself is healing the world, because there's more healed energy in the world when I'm healed than if I'm not. So, of course. And that is so it doesn't mean that we all have to, kind of volunteer Médecins Sans Frontières or but it is really, I think, I'm going to go and boldly state it is our.
Let's see if she comes back. I don't know if you can hear as I froze. But yeah. There.
Hello again. Sorry. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was saying I'm going to boldly state that it is our responsibility to be happy, because the world needs us to be happy so that we can be of service to ourselves, to our communities, to the world.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, energetically, there's more healed energy in the world. That makes a difference in the world, that there's more healed energy. On a very practical level, the more we can, drop in and feel that sense of ease with ourselves. And I've used a lot of different words, but to me, they all weave together to create this sense of happiness. When you have more of that sense of ease with yourself, then the next person that you touch with a word or an action or a smile or a glance, whatever it is, it sends that happiness out too. So it is, we might think of like the energetic impact that ripples out, but also just on that very practical level, the very next thing that you do, the very next thing that you touch, the next thing that you say is going to make a difference in somebody else's world, and then be that little spark that allows them to make that next action, and them to make that next action, and so on and so on. So happiness does spread.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And it's a really I love your analogy with the muscle thing. It's kind of, we have to flex our happiness muscles. It doesn't happen overnight. And also, I just want to point out that there are going to be people who are going to be annoyed when you start being happy and showing happiness. There are going to be people who are going to be annoyed, and you might even get, nasty comments about your positivity or about your happiness, or and it's really, again, about dropping in and going for, am I really happy? Is this authentic, or am I just putting on a smile and the happy mask? And if it's authentic, just let go of whatever anyone else thinks.
Yeah. Agreed completely. Yeah, there's a lot of ranting happening on the internet and social media, and the more you're in, I think, spiritual circles and communities of people who do care about the world, the more different opinions that you get also. And I've seen several rants about, the damage that is done by focusing on happiness. And certainly, if we think about in the kind of bigger sphere of greed and wealth accumulation and inequity that happens and all of that, if we looked at that as like, well, that's trying to like bring people happiness, and then they're avoiding problems that other people have through that, that's one thing. But we're really talking about something completely different.
Yeah, and I think what we're really talking about is owning our own happiness, kind of, working, carving it, and going into it also. Like, go to these deep waters, go and swim there. If the world is too harsh, also because the world is so sometimes so attacking. We need this place to kind of retreat in our own thing. For me, it's going to be art, for instance. Part of my deep waters is creating with my fingers, because then I kind of block out the world and I'm just with myself and my fingers and a lot of glue. And that makes me happy. So I think, and we might touch on those topics in our next 2 episodes, but there's really, it's a practice, it's a muscle flexing thing, and it's your responsibility to do so. Don't wait for the world to give you happiness. Just, work on it.
And you are worthy of it.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
are 100% worthy of all the happiness that the universe has available for you, which is a lot.
Yeah, because in that respect, the barrel has no bottom.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We have been talking for 45 minutes already. So it was an amazing conversation, but we're not finished. We're going to have another 2 conversations about happiness. We're not sure yet how and which, but we'll tell you more. So stay tuned for that. If you want to know more about the amazing Leslie, you can find her, the links below, or above the audio or video if you're watching the video, in which case you're very courageous, because I think my video was really bad this time. But the audio should be fine. So find any links for Leslie above or below. Listen to the next episodes as well. Leslie, for June 2024, do you have anything that you wanted to direct specifically people towards? Any events or anything happening?
I do actually. If you're watching this in June, if you're watching it or listening on the day that we're doing it, tomorrow, June 20th, which is the summer solstice, I'm beginning a free 5-day event called the Confidence and Clarity Activation. I feel like those are also elements of this whole abiding and happiness that we have. So I'd love for you to join me for that. Maybe we can put the link in for that also.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. So that'll be, like I said, a 5-day event. We'll come together for some short, sweet lessons and practices that will really help you to tap into what we're talking about here with this deep abiding happiness.
Awesome. And if you're not listening to that in June or on the 19th of June, please be sure that you will go on to Leslie's website and see what are her next events. I know that she has a few surprises. I know, but I'm not going to tell for now. Thanks so much for being my guest and for this amazing conversation, Leslie. I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you very much to all of you for listening to us. And talk to you soon as well. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.